If you've seen one of our seasonal forecasts in the past, you're probably familiar with our process. We basically look at two things: what has happened in the past and global circulation patterns. Usually the biggest impacts come from those changes in the global circulation patterns. You may remember last winter, we talked a lot about El Nino. El Nino is the warming of the Pacific Ocean water near the equator and near South America. That warmer water here changes global circulation patterns, air and water patterns, and that was responsible for last winter it being so warm and basically our non-snowy winter. Well, this winter we are shifting to La Nina conditions. Well, what La Nina is the same ocean water, but instead of being warmer than normal, it actually shifts to a cooler than normal water temperature. That also has a trickle-down effect with global air and water patterns. And what usually happens in the U.S. during a La Nina in the winter is that the south and southeast are warmer and drier. There's a buildup of much colder air over the northwest, and we kind of end up in between, typically with wetter than normal areas. This shift from a strong El Nino one year directly into a winter that's a weak La Nina does not happen all the time. So we actually went back in our weather history and we found that really that shift only has happened about 8 times. So we looked in the winters of these 8 years and we looked at precipitation, we looked at temperatures, and we looked at snowfall. And here's what we found in those 8 winters. We found when we looked at temperatures, really most of the time the temperatures were near normal or just a little bit above. When we looked at precipitation, and this includes all types of precipitation, rain and snow, the data was split. When we averaged it out, though, typically precipitation was a little bit higher than normal. When we looked at snowfall, however, this is where the data really gets interesting. We had some extremes. We had one year we only had 38 inches of snow. We had another year where we had 110. When we looked at all of these years together and averaged it out, usually we had just a little bit more snowfall than normal. What's more interesting, though, is when we took a closer look, all of the Decembers in all 8 years were really snowy. These are the snowfall totals from those 8 winters just in December. And then it was followed by a January and February that weren't as snowy. But then I also looked at March and April snow, and all 8 of the years had snow that late in the season, and all of them but one had 8 inches or more of snowfall that late in the season. So with this history in mind and the fact that we're forecasting for La Nina conditions this winter, here's our WSBT-22 winter forecast for 2024-25. We are looking and calling for temperatures that are slightly above normal. This does not mean it's going to be a warm winter. It means that we're looking at temperatures that are 1/2 to a degree warmer than average. Average is 26.9. It does allow for some cold snaps, but it also allows for a few areas of at least a brief warm up. Precipitation, I do think, will be above normal. This includes all types, so rain and snow. There is that historical evidence of a wet December and drier conditions in January and February. And when it comes from snowfall, I think we're going to see a pretty typical winter, but that means 65 inches of snow. So I do think we'll have winter this year. There was that records of a very snowy December, and then those late season snowfalls will be possible. Something that's always in consideration for our forecast is Lake Michigan. Every month this year has been warmer than normal, so we have warm lake water temperatures. And when we get some of those cold blasts across that warm lake water, we're likely to see some decent lake effect snow events as well. Fortunately, we have no snow in the forecast, and you have plenty of time to prepare.
Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to the WSBT 22 YouTube channel.